Season 6, Episode 9, Liquidity, Access, and Forced Decisions. So far in this season, we've been looking at accounts primarily through the lens of taxes. How income becomes visible, when taxes are triggered, how different containers delay or reshape those events. But taxes are only part of the story. Because an account doesn't just determine how money is taxed, it also determines when money can be used. And sometimes those rules matter even more than the tax treatment. This brings us to an idea that quietly shapes every financial system: liquidity. Liquidity simply means the ability to access capital when it is needed. How quickly money can be used, how easily it can be moved, how freely it can respond to changing circumstances. Some containers offer very high liquidity, others intentionally restrict it, and those restrictions can sometimes create what we might call forced decisions. Taxable accounts, for example, tend to offer the highest level of access. Money can usually be withdrawn at any time. Assets can be sold. Capital can be redeployed. Taxes may be triggered when gains are realized, but the decision to access the money remains largely under the investor's control. The container prioritizes flexibility, but other account structures behave very differently. Many tax-deferred retirement accounts restrict access until a certain age. Withdrawals before that point may trigger penalties. The container protects long-term savings by discouraging early use. And later in life, some of these accounts introduce a different kind of rule. Withdrawals may eventually become mandatory. The system requires funds to be distributed according to a schedule, even if the investor might prefer to wait. This illustrates something important. The container does not simply shape taxes, it shapes decision timing. When money can be accessed, when income must appear, when capital must begin leaving the system. And sometimes those rules operate independently of personal preference. The container begins making decisions for you. Now, these rules exist for good reasons. Retirement accounts were designed to encourage long-term saving. Penalties discourage early withdrawals. Required distributions ensure that taxes eventually become visible to the system. The rules protect the purpose of the structure. But the structure also shapes behavior. And if too much capital sits in highly restricted containers, flexibility can quietly disappear. This is why many financial systems benefit from a balance of liquidity. Some capital may live in containers with few restrictions. Other capital may live in structures designed for long-term compounding. Some funds may be immediately accessible. Others may be reserved for later stages of life. Each container plays a role. But no single container should dominate the system so completely that it removes options. Because life rarely unfolds exactly as planned. Opportunities appear unexpectedly. Challenges appear unexpectedly. Health changes. Family needs change. Financial priorities evolve. And systems that preserve flexibility tend to adapt more easily when those moments arrive. This doesn't mean every dollar should remain fully liquid. Long-term structures serve important purposes. They encourage discipline. They protect savings from short-term impulses. They allow capital to compound for decades. But the architecture of the system should leave room for movement, for choice, for adaptation. When liquidity disappears entirely, the system becomes rigid. And rigid systems eventually face forced decisions. Selling assets when markets are unfavorable. Taking withdrawals earlier than desired. Generating taxable income at moments when it would have been better postponed. These situations often arise not because the investments were wrong, but because the containers remove flexibility. Understanding this interaction between liquidity and structure helps complete the picture of how accounts behave. Taxes shape how income appears, but access shapes when capital can actually be used. Both forces matter, and both influence how well a financial system functions over time. In the final episode of this season, we'll step back and place taxes in their proper perspective. Because taxes often feel like a failure, something to avoid, something to minimize at all costs. But when viewed from a broader perspective, taxes are often simply a form of friction, a cost of interacting with the real world. And learning how to live comfortably with that friction is part of building a financial system that truly works.